Greetings from Alaska. This is Fred Roll, Curry Young Tribal Council member from Dillingham, Alaska. Thank you all for your kind words in the comments. Much appreciated. Waiting to hear back from the Tribal Council. They're doing their thing now. A little winded. Had 50 pounds on my back hiking up and down the hill, getting ready for some serious hiking here soon. One thing I wanted to touch on is our culture. We don't have a written history per se. There was a book published in the mid-70s called Story Knife. It touches on a few things, but we don't have a history book. We have our oral tradition where, I pass on stories from my elders, and then it just translates on down. And that's just how it is. That's how we know where the good berry patches are. That's how we know where the good fishing places are, and things of this nature. And because that's our culture, I feel that helps me express other people's encounters. Because we're from a culture of, very descriptive, because it was detrimental. If you made a wrong turn somewhere, you went the wrong way, could be danger that way. So we took giving directions and whatnot very seriously, even to this day. So even with all the technology and all that bullshit, because with the GPS, if your batteries die or you lose signal, then what do you got? If you don't have the memory of where you're going. Anyway, I digress. Just wanted to touch on that. Story Knife is the only written book I know of that even touches on our people. So with the blessing, hopefully, of the council, it's not a blessing to do the documentary. I could do that without their blessing. What I want their blessing for is participation. Because I can't speak for all of us, and all of us can't speak for one of us. You know what I mean? So I want to bring that more people into it. We're going to be inundated with bush planes. This is Alaska. It's that time of year. And they fly around just like the mosquitoes. Anyone who's been up here knows they're just all over the place all the time. It's a beautiful day. Woke up to 28 degrees. Still Alaska, even in May. The leaves are sprouting, but it doesn't mean shit. We get snow in July sometimes. So this encounter I'm going to share with you guys. This happened to Jerry. Jerry is originally from Togiak. He told me this encounter in 2004 when I was in the village. We were spotting herring, and we were on a low point because we spotted the herring. The purse seine had like 100,000 tons or something pursed up, and they had to offload. And so how they do it is the boat would be floating, you get your purse out, and then it gets cinched up into this big massive net with all the fish in the middle, and it's live catch. They're not gill netted or anything, they're live caught. And what happens is the factory boat will pull up alongside and drop these big tubes down into the water, pump out the fish, and the water spits out the other side. The fish go in the holding tank. Well, they're doing that. We land in Togiak to refuel, because I tell you, flying around for 10-12 hours a day in a left-handed turn a mile up in a Super Cub, it gets tiring, man. Especially back seat, you're just holding the stick, trying to keep it at elevation and keep your turn, and not slip too far left or right, keeping him over, where he's spotting. So it's like being tied to a string, just whipping around. So we're pretty tired. So when we landed and he was fueling up, I walked over to the AC market and ran into one of my relatives who was in town from Dillingham doing some electrical work. This guy Jerry comes over because he knew my relative, and they were talking. So my relative went into the AC, or the Eagle Market, and was doing some shopping because he was staying at another relative's home. And so Jerry was talking to me, and he goes, "Well, you want a manyak? You want to eat?" And I was like, "Hell yeah. What you got?" "Hook it up, man. Don't talk about it. Let's be about it." So we go over to his house, and we're sitting down eating, and the subject of Hairy Man comes up. I was talking about the Pin Air flight that spotted a Hairy Man back in '97. It was in the Bristol Bay Times. They got some kind of archive under Bristol Bay Times in '97. Hairy Man spotted in the tundra. You can look it up. Anyway, I was talking to him about that because it so happened he was on that particular flight, and he brought it up when I mentioned it because we were just talking about the hairy man and what people believe or what they don't believe. Well, he laughs and he goes, "I was on that flight, but let me tell you something." I said, "Yeah, let's hear it." Well, years back, he didn't specify the year. They were west of Non-Dalton. It was fresh into the winter, so there was a fresh layer of snow, fresh dusting everywhere. First chance they had to run snow machine. So they took their snow machines and they went out to the west into this valley looking for caribou. And they saw the herd off in the distance, so they went around this rise, parked their sleds, and then hiked up over the ridge into this tree line that ran across into this valley. It was on the one side. And they were in this tree line, and down it's basically tundra down there, so it just looked like a sheet of snow across the valley, and then some trees on the other side because it was mainly marshy, swampy tundra. And so they're looking at the caribou movement, and they hear wolf howls in the distance. So they're like, "Oh, we might, see some National Geographic shit." They didn't put it that way, but that's essentially what it would be: wolves chasing caribou in the wild. Come on. So they go. They're making their way through the trees to get a better position. They're up on this little bit of a rise, and there's 4 of them, and they're just watching what's unfolding. The caribou huddled together. They were all kind of spread out, digging around for lichen. They all come together in this group, and off in the distance they could see the trotting of the wolves right along the tree line. They're kind of ducking in and in between the trees, coming up on them, and the caribou. All the bulls were to the outside. There was about 5 bulls, a few females, and then the younger ones. It wasn't a very large group of them, but they all put up their defenses, all the bulls on the outside, and they're ready for whatever. Well, the wolves come, and they're circling around. They're doing their thing. They're trying to pick out which one they want, basically. The biggest bull in the herd kept running around with its chin up, swaying its antlers back and forth as a sign of defiance to him, I guess. And they had heard a weird noise up the hill along the same tree line they were in, but further up where they couldn't see. It kind of cut back into a draw. So just out of view to their left, the draw cuts up and the tree line kind of cut around as well. And they heard a noise, but they couldn't see it. And once whatever it was did come into view, it was a black blur, and then it was obscured by the trees that were in front of them because they're in line with the trees. So it was sparsely treed, but they were in line with it, so it was all, a bunch of trees. So they thought none of it. They thought it was the alpha wolf coming down to, quarterback this play on these caribou. Well, it wasn't the case. They heard a scream, and the scream got everyone's attention. The caribou, the wolves, they all eyes up onto the tree line, and I'm just imagining this in my mind. All of a sudden, just roar, this sound goes off, and then all of a sudden, everyone's eyes that direction. It didn't matter. The predator and the prey were just prey in that moment, And holy shit, I'm tired. So they're watching, and they're waiting for this alpha because they figured it was a big black alpha wolf. And they just caught a glimpse of it. Well, the scream was off, so they were kind of taken aback. This particular guy, Jerry, he had dealt with a hairy man about 10 years prior on the Nushagak, but the guys he was with didn't, so he just kind of kept that quiet. He didn't want to interject anything. He wanted to see their reaction, and they had like some 270s and 243s, nothing super high powered. Definitely dropped some caribou. So they're watching, and screams again, this time very high pitched, and immediately he's like, "Kachak, that's a hairy man." And everyone that was with him, the 3 other guys, are like, nah, that's got to be a wolf. It's just something's wrong with it. And he goes, "No, let's watch." So as they're watching, the wolves take off, going back down the valley the direction they came. I'm talking haul ass, and first they scattered like a shotgun blast, and then kind of all went off down the valley. Now, they're watching that, and they still haven't seen none. They heard the scream, but they're all curious now. They're up on this little rise looking down on these caribou, and that bull caribou, which would, assumably stay over there, Mama Moose. Anyway, got a Mama Moose back over here with her yearling calf. Resident cow eats my leaves and shrubs in my yard. Damn thing, can't have a garden. Anyway. So, I digress. They're watching it, and the bull kind of circles around and doesn't know what to do. So the bull starts going up the hill a little ways, and is looking back at the small herd, and the small herd starts moving along down the direction the wolves went. And out of nowhere, the caribou bull jumps and turns to run down the hill to get back with the group, because it was just up a little ways. Not like it was trying to call out the hairy man or anything like that. It was just kind of like trying to check out what was going on. And as it does it, and it turns to go back towards the herd, all of a sudden a flash just of dark comes down, and they saw just this big arm just backhand this caribou across its chest, like across its rib cage, damn near folded it in half. Whap! And it flung it. And it flings off and lands in the snow dead as a doornail, and the other caribou take off, and this thing chases after it on 2 feet. It had to get the chills thinking, can you imagine? You're watching a nature show live right before you, and all of a sudden this shit happens? Can you imagine what would go through your mind to hear a scream and then trying to figure out what the hell? And then this thing runs out and backhands a caribou to piss and shatters its body, and it flings. Whew. Man. So immediately that got their attention, and they all got their rifles all of a sudden on the ready, watching this thing, and it's chasing the caribou down the valley the direction the wolves went. And it's outpacing the caribou, and it gets up ahead of them and off into the trees, and they no longer see it, right? Hear it scream one time, and the caribou start cutting across the valley the other direction, and everything goes dead quiet, and they're just listening to the crunch and the slough of the snow of these caribou as they run across the valley. So they're like, whoa. Well, all this happening, the caribou and everything else ran damn near a half mile down this valley before they cut and started going across the valley. So they figured, well, let's check out this caribou. Maybe we can salvage some quarters off of it, and, it won't be a wasted trip, which is fucking brave. My salute. I'd have been, let's go. I don't want to get backhanded like that. Holy shit. Talk about 5 across the eye, right? So, holy crap. So they go down to investigate it, and they got their knives out real quick, and Jerry breaks out his ulu, and he has the other 3 keeping watch, and he's gutting it out, and he opens up the rib cage, and the ribs are shattered, so it's basically pushing mush. It shattered the heart. It looked like shattered glass, he said, from the impact. The lungs were just jello. Real. Anyone who's ever went hunting and shot a lung shot, and you know how the lung tissue itself will be all like kind of like a slime ball. Like it has, you could just squeeze it and it's like jelly, and that was the consistency of everything in its innards. Shattered the intestines and everything. It was just exploded on the inside. And so they got the 2 rear quarters, and as they got the 2 rear quarters and they slung them on the packs, off in the distance they hear the scream again, and it's in their direction. So immediately they're like, we're not going to be like this caribou, let's go. So they go back up over the ridge, and just as they drop over the ridge down and they could see their snow machines, which is still a good 100 yards away, they hear a scream even closer, and it had to have been coming from that little rise where they were sitting just moments earlier when this shit went down. So immediately they're on edge. The guys carrying the quarters stopped. They were about halfway down this rise, halfway to the distance of the snow machine ahead of Jerry and this other guy. And Jerry tells them, hey, drop the quarters on the ground, just drop them. We got to drop, but we can't take these with us. It's going to come with us if we do. And they were like, no, it's not going to follow us. They won't catch us on the snow machine. No. He goes, no, let's drop it. Trust me, drop it. And as he's arguing with them, and Jerry walks past the other guy, the other guy's still looking up behind him on the ridge. All of a sudden, he's got his rifle up and starts shooting right as Jerry's almost damn near right beside him. So, he's like, wee! Hears this ringing, turns around, and he sees the dark figure duck behind the ridge. Now everyone's fucking spooked, because this thing's just less than 50 yards away, because Jerry and this other guy were half the distance, so they're about 25 yards from the ridge, and the other guys are about 50 yards towards the snow machines. Immediately, the guys dropped their packs and everything, caribou attached. They didn't give a shit, and they're hightailing it because Jerry didn't see what it did behind him. It had stood up, and it had a piece of wood, and as it was picking up the log to kind of like fling it at them, the guy shot. So it ducked down and then took off when Jerry looked back. So the guy made the shot and narrowly averted some serious shit. You know what I mean? So they drop packs because they saw that shit, and they all just, they start scattering. And so when they get to the snow machines, they're just cranking like a motherfucker. Because some time had passed, so they cooled off. So they're trying, hitting the chokes and all that shit, trying to get these old Arctic cats ripping. And so they got them fired up. And as they're fired up and they're circling to get out of there, because when a snow machine's really cold, you can get it to move little by little. But until it's fully warmed up, you're going to have some issues, especially with those older sleds. Anyone who knows what I'm talking about, they'll understand perfectly. So as they're circling to get turned around to get the hell out of Dodge, this thing had come down in the meantime and just flung the quarters back up over that ridge with the backpacks attached, and just all of it just flinging, a massive distance, over 50 yards, which, to a caribou quarter and a full pack full of shit just flung like it was nothing. The amount of force needed for that, good God. But he said the one thing that stood out, outside of being scared shitless, was the impact of that smack. He said in his mind he could see it replay where the whole arm just disappeared into the caribou, and it buckled around it and then flung. God. Ooh. Can you... I could imagine that sound. Holy shit. So, they skedaddle and they get out of there. And I was like, holy fuck, well, what'd your buddies say? The ones that hadn't experienced Hairy Man. He goes, we don't talk. We stopped. After that trip, I tried to talk to them the next day with some homebrew. They wouldn't even join me for homebrew. They were busy. They weren't feeling good. They had a headache. So these things happen quite often. And even though in a tight community, and these things happen, there's still a separation. People still want to separate themselves from what happened. I don't know why that is. You would think as a community it would bring them closer, but then, you hear experiences from someone else's family member. But rarely do you get it from direct family members. It's almost like a certain type of shame. Like, I'm still delving into it. I'm not sure if there's some kind of connotation to it, like a bad omen, if dealing with the Hairy Man, that type of thing. I don't know. I'm going to find out. Like I said, I lost my roots. I'm going to be honest with you. I shied away. I went to the city. I tried to do all this other shit that really didn't, I would have been better off. Anyway, wanted to share that with you guys, give you that heads up. I'm just waiting for a phone call back from the tribal council as soon as our meeting's done. Find out about the number, the participation number or whatever for the grant, because I need that prerequisite shit before I can even file for the grant. What the fuck is that? It's peckerneck red tape bullshit. So, anyone wanting to donate, I got a Cash App in the channel description. Feel free to donate. Every donation will get a credit in the documentary. What else was there? Oh, all the kind words in the comments. I appreciate it sincerely. It means a lot. This is what I'm doing, these shares, to kill time before the documentary, and then the documentary will be a series. First one, the Hairy Man, then the Little People, then Moose Man, and then, on down the line, depending on how well this one goes and how well it's received. I'm not going to dump a bunch of money into something that, has no audience. And so far, you guys have been really kind. Over 1,000 subscribers in a little less than a month. That's cool. I appreciate it. What else was there? Oh, he did share his first Hairy Man experience, which was on the West Channel of the Nushagak River. Almost forgot that part. Because as we were talking, and he told me that one, and I brought up, well, what was your first one? He said they were setting window panes, these little 9-inch square window panes in these windows along the West Channel in this cabin on the Nushagak just above Portage Creek. Now, this particular one, they were doing work for this family that has a line of these cabins that go along there, right? And he had himself a guy named Oscar helping him. So Jerry and Oscar were putting these window panes in, and across the cabin, because it was brand new built, there was an opening for the next window he was going to be working on the back side of the cabin from the river's edge. He just got done setting one pane, and he was running out of glaze, whatever they were glazing in the windows with. And he yells for Oscar. And he saw movement in front of that other window and thought Oscar was coming around. So he grabs, his window panes, and he walks around to meet him. And as they come around corners, it was a young hairy man. It was a young one. Still taller than him, 7-footer, but real skinny and gangly looking. And they make eye contact, and he drops all those panes of glass. Got fired from that job. But what had happened is the glass shattering and making all that noise, this thing took off running around the back side, and as it cleared the cabin going towards the cabin further down, he could see the other cabin clearly. This thing leapt over it, landed on the beach, the small beach there on the river, and dove into the water, and just a stream of bubbles went downriver, and it was gone. Can you imagine seeing that shit? Like, startled, and then all of a sudden, and this thing's kabloosh in the water. I mean, and this stuff, again, this stuff doesn't happen every day. Don't get the misconception that I'm telling you, oh, this is, a daily occurrence. No, this is over the span of years and in different places. This isn't just one person, with 5 billion encounters. That's not it. And as far as my encounters, I'm not unique. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. I'm hoping to expand what I'm talking about with the documentary. And thanks again for all the support. Till the next one.